So in this morning's meditation, like a few things popped up for me. First, I was like really becoming present to the way that the mind bounces all over from like thing to thing to thing, like that monkey mind, so to speak. And it's kind of ties into what I was talking about yesterday about um meditation and how like there's no wrong way to do it. So this was just like such a beautiful thing for me to be aware of. It's certainly not the first time. It does, it happens all the time, like quite frequently. Um, and just the thing is that we want to become aware of what's going on in our mind. Like, what the fuck thoughts are going on up there? What am I thinking on? Where am I allowing my mind to go? And then inside of that, as I became aware, I really started to think about like, wow, my mind, like, this is just a thing that the ego does anyways, which is create problems that don't exist, right? Like that worry, that anxiety mind loop pattern where we start ruminating on all of these scenarios of like the what ifs of like, well, what the fuck? Like, that's not even a thing. And I'm literally programming my body to feel like it's a thing because I'm thinking about it and creating that story in my mind. And so, as I became aware of this, I'm actually going to see an ex-boyfriend of mine today. We're still amicable and we're friends, and we've got something that we're working on together. And my mind was like starting to go in this weird pattern of like, oh, what's that going to be like? I've seen him once since we ended things, but the mind was like, oh my God, like, what is he going to say? What is he going to? And I was like, once I became aware of it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, no, whoa, like pause the brakes on that because we can reel ourselves back in, right? Like becoming aware of our thought patterns helps empower us to keep our thoughts where we want them to be. Like there's power in knowing what we're thinking about because then we'll know like, is there some healing that needs to be brought there? Like, do I need a little more self assurance? Like, why am I worried about what he's going to be thinking of me? Like, what do I think of me? That's what's important because at this juncture in life, like most people think I'm just out of my fucking mind, and that's totally great, and I love it. So why am I putting emphasis on this particular person? Because of the relationship that we had. And so, like I've worked through a lot of things, and it's, you know, sometimes I worked with a lovely coach once in 2019, and he told me that certain things get healed by doing the thing. So, if we're going to have a friendship, like part of that in itself is just healing to be able to shift from the romantic partnership into a friendship and leaving everything else in the past and just being my full fucking self, despite what anyone might think of us, or particularly in this case today, this one person. Like, how often are we just changing who the fuck we are because we're like, oh, they might not like us? Like, oh, I'm too weird, or I'm too this, I'm too much, like, I'm too loud, I'm too out there, whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, well, that's who I fucking am. And if this person doesn't like it, or any person that I come across doesn't like it, or it's not for them, then they're not for me either. And I can welcome that rejection, so to speak, because now I know that that's not a match that's in alignment. And, and I'll say too, like, he's not done anything that since the breakup anyways, that's made me feel like less than or whatever. This is completely of my own doing. And I'm very aware of that, which is why I'm like speaking about it now. And so I felt the mind loop like triggering of maybe old anxieties, the old story of like, oh, if I act like myself, then he won't like me. Well, in some cases, that was true. When I really started to become more and more of my empowered self, we kind of drifted apart. And it's not that he didn't like me, but we're like literally in two different places. Like, I didn't like me either. Like, how can I fucking blame him for that? Like, the core of it is, I didn't like me at that point. I love me now. I mean, I loved me then, but like and love are two different things. I do both like and love me now. And that's what's important, like not the other person's opinion. And so how often are we taking on these things that are not our own and then making up a fake story? Like I've literally fabricated a story in my head of like what could possibly happen today, just of my own doing, like really not a ton of like basis for it. Like yeah, there were some like individualized moments of rejection based on like me expressing who I was in the past. And that was really painful for me at that time because I was very disempowered. And oh, my dog's watching. He's so cute. Um, and yeah, I was coming from a disempowered standpoint. So of course it was triggering. Of course it was painful. But now, like, if somebody doesn't fucking like me or something that I say or something that I stand for in life, I'm just like, cool. It's not for you then. Like, we don't even have to go there because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, why start an entire trigger fest for everybody on shit that doesn't matter? Like, wow, can we hold space for the fact that everyone's fucking different? That we're all in different places and like I don't have to like even go into a state of trigger because really like it doesn't exist unless I'm creating it for this particular situation. Like I'm very aware of all of the work that I've done. And so sometimes we get to a point in our own healing where we do the healing, we do the release, we do the shifting. And then there's the matter of reprogramming the ego because the ego loves to create problems that don't exist. Why? Because she wants a fucking job to do. She wants something to do. Like that's literally what it is. And because that ego is really founded in the survival instinct, like that's why we have that part of us, is so we don't go walk out in the middle of the street, get hit by a fucking car, right? It's like all of those impulses of like, oh, maybe I should like, I don't know, not walk out in the middle of a tornado or not go try and pet a bear in the wild, like shit like that. Like those really foundational things are like, oh, I need to eat now because like I'm going to starve, or I need to drink because I'm dehydrated. All of those survival impulses, they're so beautiful. I'm so fucking grateful because like we wouldn't be here without it. And because of where we are in our evolutionary state as human beings, on like a quite physical level and a soul consciousness level, and all of the technological evolution that we've had, like the man-made things that have made life easier and safer for us. Like, wow, I get to be in this house right now where like really safety, I don't have to really be worried about my safety. Like animals are not going to get in here, maybe like a fucking mouse or something like creepy like that. But there's not going to be like a coyote that gets into the house, generally speaking, unless for some reason the door is fucking left open overnight, right? Like, and who's really doing that, right? Because our survival instinct tells us otherwise. So, the ego, okay, the more we like advance in all ways in life, like the less that there really is a need for that survival instinct. And so she in me wants to create fucking problems to solve by triggering my anxiety. I'm so fucking present to that because I've been through this so many times that I know that like in terms of this relationship with my ex-boyfriend and moving into a friendship, like I know I've done the fucking work, like I've sifted through, I have learned the lessons and really taken those and have been able to integrate them. At this point, that anxiety is just the mind loop of my ego being like, oh well, that one time you were yourself and you got rejected, great, like wonderful, thank you for that reminder. And I don't need to ruminate on that and then like make myself anxious for the next 5 hours before I'm going to go over there and like work on some things together. Like it's not a thing. None of that matters. But it is the reprogramming of neural pathways because at some point it was unsafe for me to be myself. It is safe now. I am safe. I have created and become the space of safety for me. So I don't have to worry about like, oh, is he going to reject me? Like, I'm sure he will in some way. Like, we don't, like, part of the reason we're not together is because we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. That's okay. Like, that's beautiful. I can hold space for our differences. Like that's wonderful, right? It is expansive in some way for both of us to hear differing opinions and like get to talk about it and like really feel into like, wow, like why do I disagree? And like, where am I feeling that? And what's that bringing up for me? I had a really lovely conversation as well with another coach that I'm currently working with. And, we talked yesterday, strangely, about something very similar about the concept of like, I was saying that I'm coming into a place where like I'm literally just seeing the truth of who everyone is, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's not a judgment, but like I can just see through all of the facade like that, and I'm like, I fucking see you for who you are. So you could say whatever you want, but I can feel and like see who you are. And to the ego, that's kind of like overwhelming a little bit, because she's feeling like these little pain points, because everyone is like reflecting back to us. So what we're seeing in other people is really an aspect of ourselves to be dealt with. So if I'm overwhelmed with like somebody not understanding like my point of view, or overwhelmed with somebody who's just living in their pain and me wanting that to be different for them, like I need to go look in the mirror. Like, what part of me is really feeling that? Like sit with myself in that discomfort, because I'm not here to like change anyone. I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their fucking life. We are all on our individual journeys. And so, like, am I really being of service to someone when they're suffering and I'm like, hey, here's the 5-step fucking method if you want to get out of it? They're probably not in a place to receive it yet. I know I wasn't for many, many years. Like, everything, like I literally have notes that I have written myself for like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I'm like going back now and looking, and I was like, god damn, like I really knew what was up. I just wasn't ready to actually receive that and take inspired action and make changes in my own life. Because now that I am in that place, I'm sort of like on the other side of that, so to speak, and I am living in alignment with who I am and getting more and more and deeper into the flow of that every day. I look back and see notes about how like I was writing to myself that it's like safe to be myself and it's safe to be seen. But I wasn't feeling that. Hey, stop it. Thank you. But I wasn't feeling that way 3 years ago when I was writing it. Like, it's so obvious. That was like my higher self speaking to me, and my ego like wasn't ready to receive. Like, I understood it on a logical level. Like, yeah, I am safe. Like, I know that. Like, from the survival instinct of like, I'm not going to die if I show up and speak my truth. But there was this inner emotional piece of like, what if I speak my truth? It's death to ego, right? It's death. I don't, you know what? I don't like that phrase, death to ego, because our ego is the fucking bomb. Like, we wouldn't be here without her. But it's death to the story that the ego was holding on to, that it wasn't safe for me in a certain way to be seen by people. And so doing the work and coming through all of that, and now I really feel the embodiment of like, yes, it is safe. And if someone rejects me for that, wow, like what an opportunity that is for me to grow and for them to grow. Like, it is, if they so choose. And if I so choose, it's a choice to use everything that's going on in life to grow and learn and be like like the best version of us that we can be. Like, despite how fucking corny that just sounded, like I heard how that sounded. But wow, like, we are just taking in all of this stuff through awareness. So that's really the thing, is with like back, like circling back to my original point of like the monkey mind brain in meditation, like really knowing like, what is that? Like, is this actually something I haven't dealt with? Or is it something that I'm in the process of reprogramming? Because there was like really some different stages that we're in. I'm not going to keep going back and revisiting the same shit that I know that I have already cleared. I was fucking there for the work. I was there for the tears and the pain and the crying it out and being with myself and the healing and like allowing all of the things to shift and change and grow. I don't need to do it again. Like, I know that neural pathways have to be reprogrammed. And that's just a matter of awareness, keeping on top of it, and then noticing when I'm going there and saying, nope, that is not a thing. Like, let's replace it with something that's great. Like, wow, I get to see my friend today and we get to do some cool shit. Awesome. That's wonderful. That's just what it needs to be, because none of the rest of it matters. And it's a story. So be aware of your stories and really be aware of what you're telling yourself in your meditations, right? Like, that's the next thing. There's no wrong way to meditate. It's just all about raising the awareness and then deciding, making a choice of, oh, how am I going to use this information to my highest good, to serve my highest good? Yeah, that's a great question to ask. Like, how does this benefit my highest good? How can I transform this to benefit my highest good? Yeah. There's so much power in that. And so just increasing the awareness is going to be so, so key. So if you're in that place of, again, feeling like, you know, your mind is all over the place, like you can't meditate, you can't sit still, like you are not alone. Like I can't say that like I just sit here and like complete zen all of the time. Like there's times where I just like do totally like the mind is fucking 100% clear. And I'm like, wow, that hour and 15 minutes just went by like that because I completely become the now space. And then there's times where my mind is actively working some things out. Well, that's just as beautiful. That is just as beautiful because when we stick with it and let our mind work that shit out, like my mind wasn't in that for the entire hour and 15 minutes I meditated. That was just a portion of it. I brought awareness to it, was able to work with it of like, oh, what exactly is this? And then stop myself from keeping in that cyclical pattern of, oh, like this thing, like I might be rejected or whatever. Like, cause no, like, no, I don't need to go there. So then I could bring my awareness, breathe into that, get the clarity I need, and then move into the now. Because I did have some wonderful quiet time in my mind after that. But like trying to ignore it and trying to force the quiet mind is not what's going to give the quiet mind. Like that's just like we've got to have space for what our mind and ego is thinking. That's part of the process. It's like being with it and like letting it fucking go. Bearing witness to ourself as we reprogram or as we heal, as we grow, all of the things. So just stick with it. If you're doing the meditation thing, stick the fuck with it. It is so worth it. Like you will get there. Like I'm not going to say I'm there, but I'm doing the thing. Like I'm holding space for myself as I journey into me even more. And you can do this too, right? So just give yourself some patience and some grace and some time and space to be with you. All right. That's all I've got for you today. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the flip side.